I watched this funny video the other day where it was this guy, he woke up from a coma back in 2012 and he was like, "All right, has anything, changed in football since 2012?" And the doctor told him, "Well, New England's in first place, Denver's in first place, Baltimore's in first place." So yeah, he's like, so nothing's changed at all. I mean, Peyton Manning's still doing it for the Broncos, Tom Brady for the Patriots. They must have been dominating this whole time. And the doctor's like, I'm going to need to fill you in on some things because there's this team called the Chiefs that, well, let's just say they dominated the NFL for some time. And it's funny because since about 2012, that's when things really started to change in the NFL and a lot of different teams started doing great, like the Buffalo Bills. But here we are in this weird year of 2025 where it seems like we turned back the clock. Well, on the AFC, I should say. The NFC, I mean, the Bears are the number one seed. That's where things get really crazy. So that poor dude in the coma, he's up for a surprise when he hears that. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is the Snap Count Show. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Snap Count Show, where I'm your host, Matthew Raridan. And with me today, and only today, is David Street.
This is kind of a throwback Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it for sure. I mean, for those of you who don't know, me and David are the original. We are the OGs of this show, all the way back to, what was it, Coast to Coast Sports.
That's
So, yes,
yes.
throwback Thursday indeed. And it feels nice to have my voice back. Last week was pretty rough not being able to talk on the show. But I've mentioned many times the last couple weeks that this NFL season just seems like the anomaly. Because there's so many different turns so far in this year. And like I mentioned in the intro, that pretty much speaks to how this NFL season really has been because in first place in their divisions right now, you do have the New England Patriots. You have the Chicago Bears, which is so crazy to think. The Jacksonville Jaguars, actually, believe it or not, even though they're tied, they hold it right now in the AFC South. So they are the leaders of the AFC South. And although this team is not in first place in their division, we have to talk about them, and that's the Carolina Panthers. And David, what is a common theme with these four teams I just mentioned?
So the season before, all these teams had either 4 or 5 wins, and so to see them leapfrog to the records they have right now, like I don't think anybody saw it coming. Well, I have to brag a little bit, and I've beaten a dead horse about this before, but I do have to make it clear again. I did predict the Panthers to have a winning record, so in a way, the Panthers don't surprise me. But to the general audience, yes, this is all very surprising.
Yeah, and not only have they exceeded those 4 or 5 wins, two of those teams are the first number one seed in the AFC and the NFC, being the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears, which a lot of people probably did not see happening at all. I mean, I know Caleb Williams was the number one pick, and it's funny because Drake May was a number two pick, but a lot of people saw them as possibly potential busts. And I know it's still early in their careers, but you cannot knock them for being number one seeds right now. What Ben Johnson has done, besides taking his shirt off in Chicago, has been pretty phenomenal, and you have to give him a lot of credit there. Mike Vrabel, we knew that Mike Vrabel was going to be the perfect person in New England for this head coaching job. But David, a point that I mentioned actually in our text group that I really want to talk about in this show is what makes the NFL weird this year is you there's been this expectation that you have to be a star quarterback to really succeed for an NFL franchise this year, you have to have one of them on your rosters. You have to have a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes in order to succeed. But I feel like if you have the perfect coach and the perfect system, you could easily be just as good. And that's what we're seeing right now with Drake May and Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots, and even Denver with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Those guys do not scream superstar quarterbacks to you, do they, David?
No, they don't. And actually, you know, the point you bring up, I was actually thinking about it too. That the one thing that these teams have in common is that they're all their head coaches were either successful head coaches before or they were successful coordinators. Mike Vrabel, did a terrific job with the Titans. Liam Cohen was a fantastic offensive coordinator for the Bucks. Same thing with Dave Canales before him, and obviously Ben Johnson. We know the work he did with the Lions. I will push back a little bit on Sean Payton because Sean Payton and Drew Brees was basically the perfect marriage as far as coaches and quarterbacks working together, especially offensive-minded coaches. And I don't want to spoil too much because I know we're going to talk about the Broncos a little later tonight. But I do have to wonder, like, how much credit does Sean Payton actually deserve right now? Because that Denver offense has been hot garbage, especially as of late.
Yeah, definitely. And they're kind of a roller coaster when it comes to that. But my point being, and David, this would be perfect if Ed was here too, but being a college football fan, you look at systems over the years, you think of Texas Tech, Mike Leach, and that air raid offense. Not everyone could succeed in that system. Same thing you could say with Chip Kelly and the high flying Oregon Ducks offense. Not just any quarterback could succeed in that system, but that doesn't mean you have to be a superstar. And that's kind of my point with Drake May right now. Even Caleb Williams in Chicago. It, I mean, I'll hate to say it, but Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. It You get the correct system and the correct coach, many things could happen. And I'm really glad you brought up how they were coordinators before, because not all coordinators are meant to be head coaches. Let's be honest. They really aren't.
Yeah.
Some of them are meant to stay as a coordinator, such as Brian Flores. We know,
Steve
yeah,
Steve Spagnuolo is another prime example.
exactly, that they are meant to be coordinators, and there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. Look how many Super Bowls Spagnuolo has now as a coordinator. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
he's going to complain. So, I that's why I really want to bring that up, because we are in that age where you hear the Lamar Jacksons and Josh Allen, and no discredit to them because they've worked their butts off to be superstar quarterbacks. But you don't have to be a superstar, I feel like, in this league to succeed. So we don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl right now, but I can tell you who's in first place. And these teams right now that are in first place don't have superstar quarterbacks. So they're doing something right. So I think we need to give credit where credit is due. But David, we do have to talk about that Broncos team, because I did talk about it. Defensive side of the ball, they're lights out. Okay, this is a phenomenal defense who's going to finish again in top one or two total defense. So that's amazing. But this offense, David, I'll let you take the reins here. What's going on with this Sean Payton and Bo Nix marriage?
Yeah, like I said before, the Sean Payton Drew Brees marriage was the perfect football marriage, and yes, obviously Sean Payton is the head coach, so in a way he is also responsible for the defense because he's the one who hired Vance Joseph, and I think Sean Payton deserves a lot of credit for not getting rid of Vance Joseph a couple years ago when they gave up 70 points to the Miami Dolphins, and Sean Payton would have been more than justified in getting rid of his defensive coordinator, especially after a colossal loss like that. But he didn't. He stuck with this guy. So credit where credit is due. Still, though, at the end of the day, Sean Payton's primary responsibility is toward the offense. And right now, the Broncos are averaging, I think, like 23, maybe 23 and a half points per game. And, a point that one of our, that Dad likes to bring up often is that Bo Nix is usually good for like 2, 3 quarters. And there's always like one quarter where he is terrible. And Bo Nix is in his second year. And that lack of development ultimately falls on Sean Payton. Like I thought Sean Payton was supposed to be the quarterback whisperer, and not that Bo Nix has been terrible, but he also hasn't really taken that leap, or you might call it a sophomore slump, if you will. So again, I ask, how much does Sean Payton really deserve credit? Again, I acknowledge that he is responsible for all the coaches that he hired, but for one side of the ball, he's responsible for the offense, and the offense has not been great. The defense, as you said, has been absolutely lights out. So, do I believe that the Broncos defense is a Super Bowl contending unit? Without question, absolutely. But do I believe that the Broncos as a whole, overall, when it comes to being a serious Super Bowl contender, do I believe that about them? No, I do not. Because if you look at the way that they've won, and they've won a lot of games, and at the end of the day, winning is what matters. But most of their games have been nail biters. I think they've only had two, maybe three wins by double digits, and their last four, maybe five wins have all been by 3 points or 1 point. Like they're winning games by the skin of their teeth, and we've seen how, yeah, like winning is great, but we've seen how winning by the skin of your teeth really comes back to bite you. Prime example was the Chiefs last year. Yeah, they won 15 games, but they won those games again by the skin of their teeth, and they got destroyed by the Eagles. Funny enough, another example of a team that was like this last year was the Minnesota Vikings. They didn't have nail biters to the same extent that the Chiefs did, but the Vikings did have a lot of close wins. Like a lot of wins that could have gone the other way, right? And so, yeah, like I said, that is a Super Bowl contending defense, but overall, I don't see them as serious Super Bowl contenders now. But, and I will conclude with this: the last time the Broncos had a lights out defense and a piss poor offense, they did happen to win the Super Bowl. So,
That they did. But, you know, with the Broncos, I I hate saying this because I do like the Broncos. I have nothing against them. And being an Oregon Duck fan, of course, I want to see Bo Nix succeed, but they're really no different than they were last year. Because last year they caught people by surprise, Bo Nix rookie season. They went into Buffalo in the playoffs. They scored on their opening drive, and you would have thought things were going to look good. That was the only thing they did that entire game, and Buffalo just knocked them out the rest of the game. And honestly, at this rate, I kind of see the same thing happening. But yes, they're in first place, and it is weird to see a different team in first place in that AFC West right now. But this could be the Broncos division for years to come. Maybe the Chargers will finally, get back on their feet too. I know they're not too far behind, but the Broncos are in first place, but I just don't think that they're built fully for it yet. Their defense is, but their offense is still not really ticking like they need to be. So that is something to keep an eye out on. The NFL is very weird, and I keep saying that, but how weird is it? Joe Burrow went down this year in week 2 for the Cincinnati Bengals. All hope felt lost for the Cincinnati Bengals because they lost their star quarterback. They had Jake Browning, come in. He ended up winning that game in week 2 against the Jags for them. And then week 3 did not look really that good. And then they pick up Joe Flacco. And it looked like things started to look better for them once Joe Flacco came in. Their offense was just clicking, but their defense, piss poor as always. And they beat the Steelers. They managed to win a game or two when Joe Burrow came out. And then all of a sudden you heard Joe Burrow's fighting to come back to play on Thanksgiving for them. Well, why would he want to do that? Why would he want to rush and possibly get hurt again when their team looks like they're out of it? But David, I'm here to tell you, the Bengals aren't out of it, okay? I really hate saying that, but they are not. And in fact, they're looking live. They're looking really sharp right now. I know it's only one game since Joe Burrow came back, but on Thanksgiving, they looked good and the Ravens did not. But David, you have a fun fact for us with the Cincinnati Bengals team. Just how, I guess, kind of good are they when Joe Burrow's been there?
So I saw the stats when I was watching the Bengals Ravens game, and I wasn't able to get a picture because I was too slow. So I looked it up myself, and the Bengals are 8-0 in Joe Burrow's last 8 starts. So listen, Joe Burrow is not going to win the MVP award, but in terms of just being valuable to his team, you could argue that nobody is more valuable than Joe Burrow is. Nobody is more important to his team than Joe Burrow is to the Bengals. I mean, 8-0 in his last 8 starts. It literally doesn't get more valuable than that.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, because you don't have a single loss, so at that point, it doesn't really get much valuable than that. Even though Joe
And
Flacco came in, oh, what were you gonna say?
sorry, I did forget to add. I did forget to add one last thing. And mind you, it's not just that the Bengals can't win without Burrow. They look downright terrible without him. Like they don't even look competitive without him.
Yeah, I mean, their defense seems like they just don't want to try. We saw what happened against Chicago. The fact that they gave up that game-winning touchdown after they stormed back and took the lead. Their offense looked pretty decent. I mean, Joe Flacco put up career numbers with that offense, but that offense hasn't really ever been the issue. I mean, their offensive line has, but when you have
Mm.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as your number one and number two receiver, you're going to look pretty damn good on the offense. So Joe Flacco did do decent, but their defense just didn't want to play. Now that Joe Burrow's back, like I said, they're clicking. They just beat the Ravens. And here's the thing. The AFC North may look competitive because it's tied right now for first place, but that is not a competitive division. It is actually really piss poor between the Ravens and Steelers at 6-6. I mean, this is really bad actually. So the Bengals may just have a chance to actually come back and possibly take this division. And I think that's a great segue to get into these games this week because the first game we're going to talk about is the Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens, David. And when you hear rivalries in the NFL, I'm sure there's a couple that come to mind. The Steelers and Ravens is for sure one of them because these two teams for many, many years have been atop of this AFC North fighting tooth and nail for this division. And I guess they kind of still are, even though they're 6-6, tied atop the AFC North, David. But the thing is being a Steelers fan, and this is not being biased or anything, is I feel like anytime we play a team in the AFC North, it is considered a rival. I could remember many key moments from the Myles Garrett Mason Rudolph helmet hit to the Vontaze Burfict and Antonio Brown hit that pretty much triggered his CTE, and then Terrell Suggs break in Big Ben's nose. There has been so many moments across history between these teams that have made it a rivalry. But the Steelers and Ravens, I'll never forget when Mike Tomlin took over for the Steelers. And if you're a Steelers fan, you'll remember this. But one of the main sayings that Mike Tomlin would always say is, it's a 5-star matchup because you're in it. Okay. Well, when these two teams play, it is always a 5-star matchup because they know each other inside and out. But David, we've seen things kind of change because the thing with the Baltimore is they have a franchise quarterback. The Steelers don't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson is their guy, although he hasn't looked his MVP type lately. He's still their guy. And anytime you face Lamar Jackson, you always have to worry. Well, Aaron Rodgers doesn't strike that fear into his opponents like he once did. And that's the worry about this. But who do you think really needs a win the most this game, David? The Steelers or the Ravens?
Uh, Good question. That's tough. I'm gonna go with the Ravens because the Ravens had high expectations coming into this season. And I think, especially when you consider what happened the week before when the Ravens got destroyed by the Bengals, you have to imagine that they're going to want to erase that bad taste out of their mouths. And also, just, you know, and again, it goes back to preseason expectations. Nobody actually seriously thought the Steelers were going to be Super Bowl contenders, right? I mean, if you did, then props to you for being a believer. But you know, but everybody thought that the Ravens were going to be Super Bowl contenders. So in terms of just living up to those preseason expectations, and again, also um, moving on from an ugly loss like against Cincinnati, I do believe that Baltimore needs this game more than Pittsburgh does.
Yeah, I would say so too, especially because of the expectations and where they're at this year is definitely not where they want to be. I know that
Mm.
they're still tied for first, but they were expecting MVP type of numbers from both Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, and they haven't gotten that.
And that's the other thing too. I think I think there's a very damning stat for Lamar Jackson. I think it's, if I recall correctly, he's the only quarterback in NFL history to have at least two regular season MVPs, but no Super Bowl wins or no Super Bowl appearances, something like that. So Lamar Jackson has gotten a lot of criticism and a lot of hate, and certainly the fact that the Ravens, again, even though they are in first place right now, but still they're not performing up to expectations, and so that does kind of make those criticisms ring even louder for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, definitely. And over the years, the Steelers, they have actually pretty much been Lamar Jackson's kryptonite. TJ Watt has actually done phenomenal against Lamar Jackson, but I really think going into this game, it's not going to be close. I really don't think so. And yes, I agree that the Ravens need this win more than the Steelers do. I because I watch the Steelers and I just feel like they've given up. But I also feel like this team has no synchronization. We're going into week 13 and wide receivers aren't running the correct routes or Aaron Rodgers isn't throwing the correct throw. This should not be happening in week 13. This should be happening maybe in week 3 of preseason, or maybe even going week 1 and week 2 in the regular season, but not at this point. And that's where it really concerns me is how serious is this team, because they don't look serious. We just signed Adam Thielen. I like Adam Thielen. I would have loved to have him maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but bringing him in now really isn't going to do much for our offense. If they prove me wrong, great, but I just don't see it. And in this game, after an embarrassing loss against Cincinnati last week, I just don't see the Ravens losing this game. And I don't see them actually being down at all in this game. And like I said, I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a phenomenal performance by Lamar and the Ravens and not by the Steelers. Give me the Ravens winning at home 31-10. David?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Ravens are going to want to erase the bad taste in their mouth from last week, and I agree that this is going to be a drubbing. So I've got the Ravens over the Steelers 36-7.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I just don't see it close, and David, agrees as well. This next game is another game that pretty much will decide after this week first or second place in the division. Just right now, I mean, things could change, but the Colts and Jags are tied for first place in the AFC South. And you would have asked me this 3-4 weeks ago, I would have said the Colts are running away with this division. Now, I'm starting to second guess that. We talked about on the show about 4 weeks ago who we think possibly is MVPs right now, and we said Jonathan Taylor. There was just seemed like there was nothing slowing down Jonathan Taylor or Daniel Jones in this Indianapolis Colts offense. But over the last couple weeks, actually ever since they really played the Steelers, they have not really looked the same. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, on the other hand, here they are storming, and although it's tied, they hold the tiebreaker right now for first place in the division. So what Liam Cohen and the Jaguars, although it may not have been perfect immediately, and it's still not perfect, it's still going to be a while, and I don't have a whole lot of faith in Trevor Lawrence. They're in first place, so I can't knock that. And what ETN's doing also, I mean, ETN's giving them life in the backfield. They need to be able to balance things, but this Jaguars team Could be good. Could be good. I mean, they kept Brian Thomas Jr. at the trade deadline, even though there were some rumors. Okay, and I think it was smart that they did because he's going to be their number one receiver. And I know that Travis Hunter went down for the rest of the year with an injury, but the Jaguars they don't have to hold their head down low. They can hold it up high because they are in first place. But David, the question that everyone it keeps asking, and I think we need to talk about it, and we have a little bit, is the old Daniel Jones coming out?
He just might be. Um, and like it's unfortunate to say because I'm always going to love a good underdog story. Like I'm always going to cheer for the underdog, right? But there is also the sort of sense of, well, we had to know it was too good to be true. Like Daniel Jones off to a scorching, blazing start. The Colts are demolishing teams because of Daniel Jones, more so mainly because of Jonathan Taylor. But Daniel Jones played a significant factor, and it was looking like Daniel Jones was going to win comeback player of the year. Now, Daniel Jones could still very much win comeback player of the year, unless I don't know. That'd be more like coming back from well, I don't know. I think he has a better chance of winning comeback player of the year at this point than he does, winning MVP. But again, there is the sense of, well, we probably should have seen this coming. We probably had to know that this was too good to be true because right now, the Colts are, they are sliding. They are sliding down.
Yeah, and how many heart attacks happen when they saw Sauce Gardner go down? Because you got to keep in mind they gave up 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, and when you saw him go down with that injury, it was like, oh my gosh, here we go. And it was funny because people were making videos online because you saw when Tyrese Halliburton went down in the NBA Finals and tore his Achilles. He
Yeah.
said it felt like somebody kicked him from behind, and they were trying to compare it as Sauce Gardner looked behind as if somebody kicked him. But in the end, it ended up being a calf injury and not the Achilles, which is great. But I was feeling bad for them for a second, giving up 2 first-round picks and your starter player goes down. But something needs to change there. It really does with the Indianapolis Colts because they are sliding. They started out in such dominant fashion that it really didn't look like anyone was going to catch up to them, especially in this AFC South. And here we are with the Jaguars, and hey, knock knock, Houston Texans are right there on the door too. So it's something to keep an eye out on. But in this game, it's being taken place in Jacksonville, and I think the
Mhm.
Jaguars are on the up right now. I think the Colts are on the decline. So I'm going to go with the Jaguars winning at home this game. Give me this 27-21 Jacksonville.
I agree. While the Colts are sliding down, the Jags have had a lot of momentum lately, and so I'm also going to take a close game, but I'm going to lower the score. So I'm gonna take the Jags over the Colts, 17-14.
Yep. Yep. It's tough because when these offenses aren't on, they are not on. So I could see it being 17-14 for sure, but uh, we'll see who shows up this week. But I sent in our group chat the other day this picture from ESPN, and one of the topic was who's a bigger rivalry in the NFL, and it was the Steelers at Ravens or the Bears and Packers, and you guys all said the Bears and Packers easily, and it's not even close. And
Yeah,
I'll give you just a quick funny story as to why I agree. Been to several NFL games, been to Steelers games, and not once have I ever heard the fans talk about another team that's not playing at that current game.
mm,
Living here in Cincinnati, just several weeks ago, I talked about it earlier in the show. The Bears came into town and played the Cincinnati Bengals. And I talked to a couple fans after the games, and they said Bears fans are so annoying. I asked them why. They said the whole game they kept saying "F the Packers." The Packers weren't even playing in the game, and here they are talking about "F the Packers," and they're playing the Bengals. Well, that just shows you how much these teams hate each other. They're not even playing that current team, and they're still saying "f you" to that team. So
And and keep in mind, like I think everybody can agree that the Steelers Ravens rivalry is a phenomenal rivalry. Like that is not, we're not saying that that rivalry stinks. It absolutely does not. In fact, I would say it's probably the best non-historic, rivalry. But again, that's why it doesn't compare to the Bears and Packers, because it doesn't have that historic prestige that
yeah,
rivalry.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, and over the years, it's been more competitive rivalry. The Steelers
Hmm.
and Ravens have been, but that doesn't mean that over the course of time that it is a better rivalry, because this does date back many, many, many decades with the Bears and Packers. But this competitive side of things could change because the Bears are on the top right now. The
Hmm.
Packers are chasing for that top spot. So, David, in this game here, who do you think is going to have a better game plan from an offensive mind standpoint, Matt LaFleur or Ben Johnson? Because these are battle of the masterminds on offense.
Yeah. Um, Here's how I could see it go down. And I'm not trying to predict the result just yet, just based on what I'm going to say. But I could see Ben Johnson ultimately coming up with the better game plan. But I could also see that in the end, it not mattering that much, because I do believe, like at this point in the season, I'm going to trust Jordan Love over Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and that kind of is going to further my point here is at this time of the year, I trust experience.
Hmm.
Ben Johnson, although phenomenal offensive coordinator in Detroit, this is his first year as a head coach. Matt LaFleur has been doing this for some time. So Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, they've been starters, starting quarterback and a head coach in the league for several years now. Whereas Caleb Williams, he's just starting to get a hang of things. Ben
Mm.
Johnson, it's his rookie campaign as a head coach as well, and some may call it beginner's luck, but I'm going to trust experience at this point in time of the season. So you have to think Jordan Love's going to have that better game. And guys, last week Jordan Love and this Green Bay offense on Thanksgiving looked really good. Me and Ed were the only ones who had faith in this Green Bay team and this offense. And I'm not over here trying to toot my own horn, pat my own back, but they looked good. And one of the key things that Ed said was, can the receivers hold on to the ball? Or can they catch the ball? They looked pretty
Mm.
damn good catching that ball last week. In fact, that one touchdown in the corner of the end zone that may not have been a touchdown, but they called it a touchdown. It was still a great catch. I'll say that because it was a
Yeah.
great catch. So, can they replicate that this week? I'm gonna say somewhat. I,
Mm.
I think what I need to see for Green Bay to win this game is Josh Jacobs doing something. Josh Jacobs
Mm.
really needs to run the ball. He needs to run the ball great, because David, there's a two-headed monster on the other side. Now, I don't know what's going on with this NFC North with having two-headed monsters, but DeAndre Swift and I'm gonna pronounce his name wrong because I do it every time. Manungai, gosh, I'm trying. The running back for Chicago, they both put up over 100 yards last week on the ground. So Green Bay's going to need to be able to stop that. And I think Green Bay, in order for them to counter it, they need to have a run game. Josh Jacobs needs to be present in this game. And if Ed was here, I'm sure he would agree 100%, because you can't keep counting on your receivers the whole entire game and your tight ends. You need to have a run game in order to balance it. So Josh Jacobs, you need to have that game. And I think Josh Jacobs is going to have that game. Give me over 80 yards for Josh Jacob in this game with at least one touchdown, possibly two. I'm going to go Green Bay at home winning this game. I'm going to go 24-21. It's going to be a close game. I really do. And I think a field goal towards the end could win it. So that's why I'm going with 24-21 by 3 points, Green Bay. David?
So before I would have said Green Bay, but I want to disagree with you for once because I don't want us to agree on the same picks.
Yeah.
I might regret this, but I'm going to be a nonconformist and say that the Bears are going to win in a close game, 23-21.
23 20. We at least agree that it's going to be a close game because I do think so. And who would have thought here we are saying that the Bears are going to have a close game against the Packers? We don't say that too often nowadays, but right now with this Bears team, we are. So credit to Ben Johnson, credit to Caleb Williams and what they're doing in Chicago for these games. So I know Thad is going to go with the Colts to beat the Jags. He's going to go with the Packers, beat the Bears, and he's going to go with the Ravens to beat the Steelers. So he copied me, which does kind of suck because right now in our overall records, Thad's in first place at 25-16. He went 0-3 last week. So I was able to catch a little bit of ground because I went 2-1 last week. So I'm at 21-20. I'm finally above 500. Let's go. Ed's at 16-25. He went 1-2 last week, and David, who went 0-3 last week, is at 12-29. David, what the heck's going on, man? You gotta start catching up.
Yeah, it's the lost cause at this point, man.
Hey,
You know?
but I mean, going opposite of me and of Thad definitely is going to help your cause because if our picks don't win, you're winning. So I mean,
Yeah.
I see what you're doing there for sure. Really quick before we, go off this show, thoughts and prayers going out to Ed, who's not here today. I just want to let you know you're in our prayers, you and your family, bud. Thad, who had prior commitments, we wish he could have had you here too. But next week, hopefully, we'll have a full crew, so the whole gang will be back. My voice is back, so we're good there. But having the full gang will be nice. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please continue to hit that likes and subscribe button. Let us know. Drop your picks in the comments right now. The 3 games we went over. And actually, also another prediction in the comments for you guys. Let us know who you have right now winning the MVP race in the NFL. Because usually by this time last year, it was pretty much either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. There was no one else. This year is a little bit more open, but let us know in the comments who your prediction is right now for the MVP. But until next time, guys, that's the final whistle. We'll catch you next week.